So hi everyone. Thanks for joining this Conductor Community call. I'm Olivier Poupani, Head of Developer Relations at Orkes, and very happy to guide you through this session today. This session is also recorded, so hello to everyone who is joining from the video that is shared on our YouTube channel. So let's jump into the agenda. We have kind of interesting agenda today with some community updates and some Conductor OSS updates as well. We are gonna also go through the Build the Flow hackathon, who has been completed recently, and see who were the winners. We're gonna have the privilege to have a champion user presentation with Dan, that is with us today. And we're going to go through developer events and a quick Q&A session. All right. So in the pretty big news from the community, we recently launched our Conductor Ambassador program that can be accessed from our website. So this Conductor Ambassador program is pretty interesting in the sense that you as a Conductor user, Conductor developer can help other developer in the community and being recognized as an ambassador. So there are some duties. The duties is to help the community. The duties is to write blogs, articles, LinkedIn posts, or whatever that can make Conductor more famous than what it is right now. It can go also through hosting some events. We already have some ambassadors, one ambassador who hosted recently an event in San Francisco. I'm going to go through that a little bit later when we're going to talk about the developer events. So as a recognition, you're going to get an official Conductor Ambassador badge, digital badge that will be given to you and that you can share on your LinkedIn profile. And there is also a nice swag package and some complimentary attendance to developer events where Orkes is present and most of the case sponsoring. So we have some kind of VIP tickets that we can give you as well. There is a dedicated Conductor channel on Slack where ambassadors can talk to each other, and we're gonna set up and schedule some dedicated session where everyone can meet everyone and discuss also toward a live virtual event that can be that will be quarterly based. So don't hesitate. It's of course totally free, except some times that you can devote to become an ambassador. It's open to anyone, so feel free to look at the program and just register from the form that is in the page from the website if you're interested. Let's go to the Conductor OSS update. We have a big announcement that is a new version of the Java Client SDK. And it's a major version. We are in a 3.x version right now. It's going to be a 4.0. And why? Because it introduces a lot of changes. First, it's not going to be a dedicated repo. It's going to be part of the Conductor OSS repo. And that will be the case for all future versions of other SDKs as well. So we're going to reunite all SDKs under the Conductor OSS repository. For this first major version, there will be a restructuration to have more modularity at the core, also to help the Spring auto configuration, but most importantly, there is something that is a little bit complicated to manage these days, which is dependencies with some underlying projects, mostly the Netflix projects, the Netflix Eureka and the next Netflix Spectator. So those two will be removed, and with the 4.0 will have a lot of dependency optimizations as well. It will be really the most important part of it. For Netflix Eureka, it's going to be replaced by a poll filter, so you can do exactly the same, but there will be no more dependency with Netflix Eureka. So developers will be able to really manage better new version of the Conductor SDK without this dependency. There will be a support for HTTP2, which is also a big improvement, and gzip for compressed communication. I talk about the modularity. I promised to provide a live demo for the next Conductor Community call that will take place mid-end of October. In terms of release dates, there will be an alpha in October, and it's mostly beginning of October, then end of October, and the GA. Don't want to overpromise, so before the end of the year, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the last day of December where everyone will be on vacation for Christmas. It will be really more toward, I mean, what we have in mind right now is more toward November. Next is Build the Flow Hackathon. So it was our first episode of this hackathon, and this is something we're going to continue. There will be a second episode that's going to start probably in November to cover the winter season. For this first episode, we were very happy to have more than 300 participants and receive 17 projects. Of course, all projects are challenging between themselves, but we had to pick some winners. And I'm pleased to announce today in this community call the 3 winners. The first one, there is no order, so it's not one was better than the other one. It's 3 winners at the same level. The first one is Pratamesh Pawar for Best DevOps Orchestration with a project called Infinity CI/CD Platform, where everything is automated for the CI/CD. It's pretty brilliant. We were very happy to see what has been done. There are some demos available if you are interested to see. The second winner is Pranav Salunke for the best GenAI orchestration, and his project H Revelio. Pranav did also kind of interesting orchestration here, where you can really use generative AI in order to improve the way your code is coded, as well as getting some recommendation and some automated tests. So it's pretty interesting. I personally did some tests with it and was quite impressed about the fact that how AI can become a good companion in developing something that is not well structured or something like that. Pranav also became Conductor Ambassador. He's working right now on the blog to talk about his experience with the Build the Flow hackathon and how he integrated Conductor in his project. And last but not least, Ogden with his project CodeFlow, and for the best GenAI also orchestration. We were very impressed with this workflow. I have some screenshots about what Ogden did. You can see that it's not as simple as you may think, but it covers all part of getting from GitHub, copy the repo, and go through also a nice improvement in the way the project has been coded using AI. So we see more and more projects that are mixing orchestrations and AI. We see that in hackathons, and this is also quite present into what we can see in either in the community or when we do some developer events. There is a very high demand of mixing orchestration and generative AI. We call that generative AI orchestrations. That can be a domain in itself. So very interesting. Congratulations again to all winners here. And all projects are available to be seen as a demo. You can test it as well. And maybe we can see in a future community call, we can have some demos about what has been done. Yeah. Thanks again, everyone, for your participation and congratulations. All right, let's move to our community champion presentation. And today we have the pleasure to welcome Dan Miller, who is a tech lead at First Databank UK. And he's going to talk about how he used Conductor in order to modernize his legacy applications. Dan, I'm going to stop presenting right now and give you the presenter role so that you can share your presentation.
No worries.
Can you try to share? Yeah,
That's cool.
Perfect.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Yeah, my name's Dan Miller. I'm tech lead at First Databank, particularly for the Multilex product. I've worked here for a good 7 years now. Apologies if I sound a bit bunged up. I've got a cold at the moment. It's that time of the year. Kids are going back to school. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, I come from an infrastructure and software development background. Got many decades of experience, and yeah, definitely enjoy working in the tech space. I'm particularly like geeking out on technology, new technologies, and all this sort of stuff. So found Conductor to be quite an interesting tool and system, and found it really good for tackling some of this sort of legacy stuff. So first of all, I'll just paint a little bit of context about First Databank, because it just kind of sets an understanding of what our legacy domain kind of looks like and the sort of challenges that we kind of face in that space. So First Databank has been in the market for over 40 years now. We're integrated into more than 10,000 sites across the UK. And this means we have a lot of legacy components to our solution. Being a medical product and being particularly a code-based product, so i.e. we supply coded data about medications, maintaining integrity about those codes is quite important. That data might be stored in a patient medical record, and some of those encoded pieces of information need to be referred back to on a lifetime sort of perspective. So there's certain medications that you need to be able to know that a patient's taken that throughout their lifetime. So it's quite important for that sort of integrity. I also, we talk about legacy a lot, and one of the things I always like to stress about legacy is I definitely see it as a measure of success. You know, if you have legacy code, it means you have a product that has been successful. It is had time in the market, and therefore has built up a tech debt or heritage, as some people call it. And that's just one of those things that I think for product success, it's important that sustainability is a key part of managing legacy. very, very quickly, I'll try and rattle through some of this stuff a little bit. So we provide decision support. So what that is basically doctors, pharmacists, informaticists use our data to support them when prescribing drugs to patients. So we provide things like allergen checking, dose checking services, or things like interaction checking. So various different, if you've got patients that are taking multiple sets of medications, it's checking all those ingredients that they work well with each other and they don't interact and they don't cause any harm to the patient. So we provide quite a broad spectrum of different types of services, different types of support to those clinicians. We also provide different types of products as well. We provide API, we provide data sets, and we do provide some SaaS-based platforms, and we also provide some traditional DLL type deliveries as well. So we've got a real broad spectrum of use in the market, and lots of different sort of scenarios and use cases as well. So where we were, so with a 40-year-old product, over time we'd built up quite a large legacy monolith of a back-end sort of system. I think it's really, really important to stress that safety and patient care is core to what we do. Our whole product is about making sure the patient is safe, making sure that they're not being harmed and being supported. So for an application that was originally developed as a monolithic application, this can presents significant challenges. We have to take rigorous testing and acceptance for any release that we create, and alongside this, we have a complicated data production pipeline. Some of it is some of those processes are up to 300 steps. Some of them are manual, some of them are kind of scripted, but they're all kind of disconnected largely in our well, they were in the past anyway. So all of this is kind of really frustrated software development, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Validation testing is critical to anything to do with medicines, but it is frustrating for software developers when we want to do more, we want to test more, we want to be able to build new features. That makes it challenging to move forward and work with those things. So for us, we really needed to find a solution that could help us safely break those behaviors out of that monolithic type architecture, so that we could test it more effectively, we could build more validation into it, more automated validation particularly, but also start adding new features, bells and whistles, and capabilities to the solution. The IT world has got loads and loads of new technologies that are evolving, and embracing that and utilizing that is kind of really, really important to us. So we can continue to do more. We can do more for patients, and we can do more for patient care. So for us, the brainwave really was for when we looked at Conductor. The big thing for us was the hybrid process. There was this notion that kind of really set off a whole domino effect of thought, which was this human task idea, and having the orchestration, having both manual human-centric processes and automated processes. So for us, the key area the key thing for us is that the person authoring the content is the person who's the SME. They have all the skills necessary to make the decisions on what that content needs to look like, to make the decisions about what's valid, what's safe, what needs to be where, and having them integrated into an automated process is kind of really, for us, was quite a game changer, really. So what we've been able to do is change those processes that were, say, 300 steps long. We've been able to automate what was automatable. We've been able to have that breakout to work with our clinical teams and have them feed into that process where there was some complexity or some uncertainty. And in our domain, in the clinical domain, that's really, really important, because there's a lot of things that are very, very subjective. They're very complicated. It's not easy to say it's this. It's not a binary decision. It's very difficult. It's been difficult for us in the past to kind of calculate those things. So being able to just have that as a step inside of our process was really, really, really powerful. I think also the polyglot nature of Conductor was fantastic from a utilizing new technologies perspective. We're predominantly a C# house, but we've been able to embrace using languages like Python and potentially Java and other sort of languages, which kind of opens up the door to utilizing that new technologies that we weren't able to before with the sort of traditional sort of monolith that we were sort of working with. So utilizing Conductor, we've been able to break our monolith into domain segments. So this is kind of a very, very small overview of how we've kind of structured our services. So what we've done is we've created microservices with micro UIs centered around each domain. And then what that allows us to do is create endpoint handlers, whether it's for an API to go to a UI, or if it's something to do with orchestration, we can wire those wire these things into the same service using the same SDK, using the same database. And really that allows us to then pull behaviors from this legacy space and the database layer and pull them into the application layer, pull them into the orchestration layer, and kind of really start refactoring that process and that sort of legacy estate, but whilst also allowing us to add more testing, more verification, more validation. We were able to sort of harden what these services accept as being valid, and kind of really start making that journey of refactoring the solution much smoother. So I think critical thing for us has been evolution, not revolution. So we've been able to solve some complex problems, and we've been able to break them up into small steps. Where there was something that we couldn't solve in a automated way, or that naturally just fitted into that microservice centric space, we can take small steps. We can break them down piece by piece, and some of it means we've got to lean on the legacy monolith, but the Conductor process can help us cope with that. We can create handlers and services that deal with that. Utilizing the hybrid processes, we've been able to automate tasks like our data ingest and focus on the value add activities that our expert knowledge brings to the party. We've been able to standardize our services, so we've got standard templates for these things. I think having the open source SDKs has been really, really useful, because what we've been able to do is take that, wrap it up with an opinionated shell that then allows us to create reproducible, tested, pre-tested and pre-verified templates that lets us move forward quicker. And I think, like I said at the beginning, we've been able to test more effectively, which means we can move more quickly and we can move safely. We can introduce new automations, and we can extend that with more validation. So we're able to adopt new ways of working, new tools, new things, and it's helping us on that journey and supporting us in that sort of process of change. I think that's it. I think I did have a slide of questions, but I don't know if you were going to have questions at the end or.
Oh, we can take them right now. I think. Thank you. It's really a fantastic story here. What I really noticed is the fact that you were able, and that was really important. You were able to, and that's always the problem, in IT. I have more than 30 years of experience, mostly in engineering. So it's always a question of integration. And when we have a legacy, um, it's always a problem when the legacy is developing a certain technology to modernize this legacy, because we are kind of obliged to continue with this technology, even though we would like to use something a little bit more modern. And using putting an orchestration layer in this architecture helped you to go progressively, uh, some kind of iterations that start by a little service to migrate, and then you're open to the world. Like you can, as you say, you can introduce some Python, even though your legacy was in .NET originally. So that's pretty interesting. One question that I have is, because we need to, this is the way sometimes we go to use something like Conductor in order to solve our integration issue or modernization issue. But what about scalability? How many workflow instances that you're executing per month?
The so at the moment, we're it's quite low, to be honest. I think it what we found is that we've got like one or two large workflow sort of processes, particularly that publication process that sits at around about 300 tasks. That's the one that we were tackling first,
Mhm.
as because it has a huge amount of automation opportunity, but there's lots and lots of human manual steps that are necessary, but particularly validation steps where we need the clinical team to go run certain checks, verify things are in the correct state before then we move to the next phase of the publication process. So what we found with our sort of like that journey is that we started off with basically a handful of large. I mean, the publication workflow is absolutely massive. We've actually broke it up into a bunch of sub workflows to keep it manageable, but they are huge, and quite impressive when you see them all working. We've got lots of parallelization, and you kind of see it moving around and completing as people are completing tasks off and stuff, and the system's just doing things in the background whilst people are doing things over and somewhere else, and it's really really cool. But I think over time, as we keep chipping away at that, it will grow. It will become most likely quite large. I think the highest number of executions that I can see us hitting will probably be at like almost like a one-to-one parity with the product changes coming into the solution from our external data terminology suppliers. So basically, they give us all of the sort of referential data for the particular products and drugs and medicines and stuff. So it'd basically be like, I think it's in the region of about 10, maybe 20,000 product changes each month, that sort of number. But yeah, it is going to be an interesting part, I think, going forward. What does that look like for us? And I think there's going to be a lot of sort of kind of figuring out, well, what do we need at that point in time as well. I think we're using OSS at the moment because of that low number of workflows, but I think we can definitely, as that grows, we'll probably want to sort of change some of that sort of relationship, I think. But
That makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how did you see? So you started to talk about the future. How do you see everyone is talking today about generative AI? Do you see something that can help in your case as well? And integrating tasks that will interact with LLMs and vector databases as something kind of important for the next steps?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I think the key challenge that so something that we are investigating heavily. The key challenge with LLM and medicine and patient care is safety. How do you verify it? How do you validate it? How do you prove that that thing is still is doing the job safely and correctly for the patient? So it is going to have I suppose just that added complexity of verification added to the mix. But I think there's great opportunity inside it. I think it's an exciting thing to see. I think it's one of the reasons why we were quite excited by Conductor, and I think Orkes's investment into that AI and the LLM and the vectorization estate was that shows that hybrid process kind of going to a different direction. You know, you have the automated, the traditional stuff, you have the human, and you have the AI sort of in that model. And I think that's potentially a really powerful tool. So yeah, what that
Absolutely.
means and what it does is, yeah, there's so many different perspectives to investigate. But yeah.
And Conductor stays totally agnostic. Like you said, it was interesting because it was polyglot and it helped you
Yeah.
to be open to other languages, but it's also agnostic of the cloud because it can be installed anywhere, as well as task workers. But it's also agnostic with AI models. You can integrate today any models that can be internal models through your API provider account, or it can be one of the most famous ones. We have today integrations with really everyone, and including vector databases. And in your case, that would be very important to avoid hallucinations and transform your infrastructure as a real agentic RAG framework
Mm.
to upcoming the new challenges for the future. Dan, thank you very much. It was very interesting. And who
I
else
have
is?
one quick
Yeah,
question for
of
it
course, of
as
course.
well. So you mentioned that some of these workflows are quite long. You mentioned, I think, over 300 tasks or something like that. So were there any particular challenges with that? Because I can imagine that these are workflows that run for quite a long time, and maybe there is some kind of a business process associated with that. And what happens when it fails on step 257? Do you have things like failure workflows where you try to maybe fix some issues or roll something back? Or maybe when you do some kind of an upgrade in production, do you have issues because you have workflows that have been running for such a long time?
Yeah, I think it's a really really important thing that we kind of discovered was that the processes we're running, some of them, you know, they're not hardened really at this sort of stage. So we've when we've been introducing stuff to that conductor process, we're introducing those automations. We've definitely been focused on making sure that each step is idempotent so that it doesn't matter if something has to be rerun. It doesn't matter if something falls over and you need to re-execute a step or start from where it left off if something does have a problem. Because when you're, you know, so far into a sort of publication process or you're into a validation process, you don't want to lose the work you've done, but also you need to be able to recover and you know move forward. I think going forward it will probably be interesting to see where automated recoveries start coming into the mix. At the moment we very much would just stop. We've got basically notification workflows that would get executed and then basically tell us there's a problem, this thing's halted at this stage or so forth. but I can definitely envisage us being able to bring in those mitigations and those workarounds into that process. So we can say it's fallen over here, this is what we would do to fix it, and it just applies that fix and moves forward. Or even just actually address the issue further upstream. I think that's one of the things that having more testing and verification in place, more automated testing, allows you then to refactor those processes more safely and shifting it left, basically.
Yeah, so making those steps idempotent definitely seems like it will help. So you did mention also testing. Did you how difficult did you find to test these workflows? Did you do kind of end-to-end tests? Did you mock them or test them individually, or maybe you mentioned that there were quite a few of these human tasks, so less things to test in the end, I guess.
Yeah. I think at the moment, testing still something which we're kind of figuring out what it means for us. I mean, obviously the workers are all tested using automated testing. That's really, really easy. And I think, again, one of that sort of like, fantastic things about this decoupling is that you can test it. You can make sure that that thing's going to do its job properly. All it is about asking it to do the job, and it bringing the task to it. But the workflows themselves, particularly the ones which have lots of human tasks, at the moment, that's very much just us. We test it. We have to just basically manual check it all moves through and it's going to where we want it to be. I think we have been experimenting with automating that process. We've got a large focus of BDD testing, so we like to have explainable tests that basically articulate exactly what it is they're testing, and what they're doing, so it's understandable to developers and testers alike. But bringing that to a workflow without it starting to turn into some large novel, basically, is kind of the challenge we're facing at the moment. So it's just figuring out how that works, what the best way for us to sort of bring those two things together and make something that tackles that.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
Thank you, guys. Very interesting discussions. I'm gonna go back to my slides, sorry. And move forward to toward the next slide, which is about developer events. We recently were present at some developer events. The first one in San Francisco, microservices developer meetup hosted by one of our ambassadors, Vivian Zhang. She shared a little bit like the way Dan did today at the community call, her experience in using Conductor toward other developers who were pretty interested and impressed by what she did at her company. We were present also at London JS developer meetup. JavaScript is a language that is pretty popular and can be used to develop task workers, but we also think that for front-end developers, Conductor can be a product and a solution to help those developers, front-end developers or full-stack developers, to build stateful back for front. And that is important because today a lot of back for front are developed in order to manage the state of a particular application and the way the backend is consumed. Having Conductor in the middle can really help to build something totally stateful with the intrinsic features that Conductor is providing. We were also present last week and at API Days, which is a famous developer conference that happens pretty much everywhere on the planet these days. The London one was a very big success with 1,500 people who were present. and I had the privilege to give a session about document processing using generative AI orchestrations. That was a lot of engagements with the crowd there. It was really great. And some upcoming developer events will be present at PyData community, Python community in New York in October. We're going to do a big 2 hours meetup with the Golang community of New York. It's a big community as well. And we're going to introduce orchestrations. This is something that is not really present in their community so far. So I talked to their community manager, and we're going to do a presentation with as well as hands-on session. So it's going to be 2 hours dedicated to Conductor. We'll be present at API Days Australia in Melbourne, still in October, and we'll be back in UK for a Kubernetes user group. We'll be at GoTo Chicago. We'll be at Denver Script, another JavaScript community in the US. And we'll host also a Conductor developer meetup in San Francisco, probably end of October or very beginning of November. And last but not least, we'll be present at QCon SFO, and I will host their masterclass, of 3 hours masterclass for also document processing using Conductor and generative AI. This list is going to grow because this is really something we want, and we again go back to the ambassador program. If really you want to join the existing ambassadors and help us to outreach the developer community, and it was the case at API Days London. We can see that orchestration as a layer in a tech stack is not totally understood by everyone. So we need to help the developer community to understand that it is a must-have today if you want to build reliable and scalable distributed applications. All right, that's pretty much it for today. The Conductor repo becomes more and more famous every day. We reached more than 17,000 stars right now, but it's never enough. So feel free to share it. If you didn't start a repo yet, do it. It will help really Conductor to become a de facto orchestration tool in everyone's tech stack. And I'd like to open the floor to some questions if you have.
I have a question regarding the, let's say, the definition of the tasks in Conductor. Are there any plans, or were there any plans to introduce some kind of a typing mechanism where you would have like a JSON schema or something like that that would define the inputs and outputs of tasks, so that you can maybe develop tools that would help you to put together workflow definitions easier and with more accurately, I would say?
So this is something already possible in Orkes Conductor. I engage you to go to play.orkes.io to try it out, where when you can define a task before using that task into a workflow, and for all the input output you can define the relevant JSON schema.
Oh,
so
okay.
when you add the task in your workflow, automatically you have the required input and out, and especially input in that case.
Yeah, I'm mostly asking because of these use cases when you have complex objects being outputted or being passed to the inputs of tasks. But yeah, it's nice to know that there's something for that already.
Yep.
I think
Good.
also at
Yep.
one point you mentioned that some of the features from the Orkes Conductor will eventually maybe be ported to the open source version. Are there any plans on what's next or what might be coming soon that is kind
You
of a
have,
big deal?
yeah, you have, so the roadmap is part of the repo. So I don't know if you already took a look at it. So you have a list of that. We have also contributions. I was discussing with one of the community member who would like to propose an inline Python task. Today we can do inline JavaScript task, but we cannot do inline Python task. So that could be something that is also added to the Conductor OSS. Other than that, I mean, from what I have in mind, there is one of the big thing was to add a scheduler to the OSS. But the roadmap will give you the full list, and of course, if there are more requests for things, we'll be happy to hear, because that, of course, guide us in order to what the community is requesting. Always better than what we think is good for the community.
Thanks.
Hey, Oliver. I had been trying auto scaling on OSS Conductor, and probably I think we also touched base on this. On Orkes documentation, we see that some Prometheus metrics are available. So, but that's not available in OSS Conductor. So, any recommended ways of scaling there?
Well, yeah, that's a big question, and usually we don't have really a particular answer to that, because, and it is always, it's like authentication. We are hearing a lot about how do I manage authentication with Conductor, right? This is always the trade-off between having something totally open and for you to have the freedom and ability to implement your own way to manage those things. We can help you if you're at a particular level, but we cannot, for the Conductor OSS, we cannot really guide you to tell you exactly what are the metrics that you need to put in order to scale properly in your particular context for the kind of workflows that you have.
Okay. Okay.
But if there is something very specific that you would like, yeah, come back to us and we can take a look at it. Definitely.
So on the website of OSS Conductor, I see that it's scalable. So, but on the documentation, I do not find anything on how to actually really scale it. So if I go to Orkes Conductor, I find the documentation. But if I go to OSS Conductor, there is no documentation which says probably this is how you can pull up the metrics. I eventually built my own solution by pulling. I started pulling the data from the queue table like using our queue API and started putting it to my CloudWatch. But I was thinking, like, if OSS Conductor website is saying that it's scalable, probably the documentation should also include some basic information.
I take the feedback, Aaron, and I will come back to you on the community channel to give you an answer on that.
Cool.
But
thanks.
Thank you for the feedback. This is important for us.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for this engaging conversation to this community call. This is really what we were looking for. Stay tuned for a next community call that will take care probably end of October. The date is not set because, as you saw in the developer events, we have a lot of engagements already. But we're going to communicate a new date for that. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon. depending on where you are. And talk to you very soon.